Delta Force, the unashamed Battlefield clone, has been out for a little over a year now, and its latest update added what appears to be, for lack of a better term, Levolution. So I reinstalled the game at a massive 165GB download and loaded into the new map called Aftershock. It's got tons of destruction, including these massive falling skyscrapers. Obviously, there's some pretty strong parallels here to the Battlefield franchise, and I thought it would be fun to check it out and see how this free-to-play Battlefield knockoff is holding up. Now, it really doesn't take a seasoned gamer to notice the parallels between Delta Force and Battlefield, but perhaps it takes a seasoned Battlefield player to realize that this game is copying more from Battlefield 2042 than any other game in the franchise, which undoubtedly hurt its Western appeal since 2042 was one of the least popular games. But maybe the devs are starting to branch out to the other games in the franchise, since this new level takes a lot of its cues from Battlefield 4's Siege of Shanghai. The new Aftershock map in Delta Force features two skyscrapers in the middle of an urban area being hit by aftershocks from an earthquake. Eventually, the aftershocks trigger large-scale destruction events, including skyscrapers getting shaken apart. And when they fall, I mean, I'll be honest, it's pretty impressive looking. The first skyscraper that's already partly knocked over fully falls apart, triggering the still intact one to also fall. And while the whole sequence is more of a scripted set piece and doesn't seem like it can be triggered early by players, there are other buildings around the map that the players can damage and destroy. Unfortunately, these smaller buildings don't really leave any rubble behind when fully destroyed, which is kind of unsatisfying when you bring a whole building down, especially since it actually kind of looks cool before the actual collapse phase. Now, the Battlefield franchise is one of the most notorious games for injecting full-scale destruction to a multiplayer game, but even their approach differs in a lot of ways from title to title. In the Bad Company games, falling buildings left piles of rubble, but you could pretty much flatten an entire map, which made it kind of boring to play on in the end. DICE dialed it back for Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 so that at least some buildings would be left standing after a match, and Battlefield 6 seems to have a pretty good balance of destruction and debris without taking out the natural flow of the map. Delta Force, at least on the Aftershock map, kind of falls somewhere between, I'd say, Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 6. There's a lot of destructible buildings, and you can even blow apart the facade of a building and drop the debris on players below, which is a pretty cool effect and something that I very much miss from Battlefield 3. Now, despite Aftershock really borrowing heavily from, say, Siege of Shanghai from Battlefield 4, the map unfortunately lacks any good sense of verticality. In Delta Force, you're limited to mainly fighting in the lobby of the skyscrapers, and it makes the destruction event feel a little bit more superficial, at least when you're comparing it directly to, say, Battlefield 4. Now, outside of this map, it's been a little while since I played Delta Force, and part of coming back to it was just so I could see the potential changes to balance and bug fixes and pacing and flow. And because the game's been out for about a year now, I was expecting it to feel quite a bit different since the last time I played. Now, granted, I'm only interested in the Battlefield open warfare side of this game versus the extraction mode, so I'm kind of oblivious to more of the extraction updates that this game's made along the way, but it does seem like they've really leaned into the game just kind of being a 2042 clone, where I think a lot of players saw it launch and were hoping that it might sort of correct away from that a little bit, but still the frontline gameplay is very ability driven. At just about every moment where two armies met each other in some sort of big clash, there was always a ton of smoke abilities and see through that smoke abilities with sort of wall hacks. It's a little less pronounced on the Aftershock map, which is good since most of the map is fairly open, except for the final sector in Attack and Defend. This area confines the action to a small plaza behind a fallen highway, and it's basically a camper's paradise. It just turns into a stalemate every round I played. And while map design problems have always been an issue even in Battlefield games, it's made me sort of respect DICE for going back and correcting a lot of the design flaws or the pacing flaws, or looking at how a map is playing and changing it. And I don't feel that as much with Delta Force. Like, there's a lot of obviously bad choke points and situations where you're just like, this doesn't flow well at all. And I think I was just expecting more of that to be refined on this second time around. And I'm sort of surprised that I have many of the exact same grievances that I did at launch. The The weapons also still feel middling unless you kit them out with immersion-breaking gadgets like triple laser sights. I honestly thought this meta would have been adjusted since it's so silly and over the top. On the presentation side, the 2042 inspired operators still have super cringe-inducing catchphrases.
The arrow is an extension of my will.
Mommy isn't scared of their guns. Mommy will find you.
And on top of that, every match is full of people in cutesy outfits and over-the-top blinged out weapon cosmetics that break whatever little immersion the game had left to offer. Now granted, I'm seeing this game through Battlefield goggles. It's doing things that if the Battlefield franchise did, the player base would be enraged. We know this because they've tried it in the past and the player base was not having it. But Delta Force has a pretty healthy player base right now. But I think it's just really popular in the Asian markets because of the different interests over there and it being a massive free-to-play title. But I don't know for certain. I will say that finding a match on the new map took quite a long time initially. It's also tough to tell if the servers had bots in them or not. Sometimes the names just seem super generic and artificial and the players were too easy to kill, but I really couldn't say for sure. Then again, I don't know if people are playing the extraction mode versus the Battlefield mode more or where the efforts go. This game is a bit of an enigma to me. I suppose this game's biggest advantage, if you compare it directly to a Battlefield game, which you kind of have to do since it is just following so closely in its footsteps, is that it is truly a free-to-play game. You can pop into it with zero money and play the Battlefield experience or the extraction experience, in which there's a decent amount of content there. Now granted, it's pretty grindy content and it's more clunky and less well balanced than an official Battlefield game, but it is there and it is free. And I think I also just have to acknowledge that there's a market for a game that follows in 2042's footsteps. 2042 was one of my least favorite Battlefield games, but there's a market for it. There's a market for a free-to-play version of it, certainly. And so if you're hoping for a more modern, military, more grounded, realistic feeling game, well, Delta Force didn't push in that direction. I'd actually be really curious to know if you guys are playing Delta Force still. Did the new update attract you back into the game? Are you enjoying it? Do you think it's a fun little time waster? Or do you just own Battlefield games and would prefer to play a better balanced experience? Let me know in the comments. And up next, check out this video on Cairn, an incredible rock climbing game from an indie studio that is just blowing away people's expectations. It's such a cool game with such a simple concept and really restores my faith in the whole gaming industry. It's one of those games that I think just about anybody could enjoy. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.